the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Brothers and sisters, we call Christ our Master, not only because he is in charge, but master also means a teacher, like a school master. And so Christ came to teach us how to be that which God created us to be, and how to live forever. But it was not just by his words that he taught us how to live, how to be, and how to live forever. But by his own example, he taught us. Students need a visual. And on the cross, the Lord showed us what love looks like. For he is the Lord of love, and he came to teach us how to love our neighbor and to love God. You might say, Vladika Jonah is always saying this, that the biggest problem with our desire to love God and love our neighbor is our ego. It gets in the way. We tend, for some reason, we tend to think of ourselves first. We tend to put ourselves first. And even when we're doing things that seem very polite and nice and charitable and to others, if you examine yourself, how much of that is so how they'll think of you? What are others thinking about me? How do they see me? And so we often seek our own glorification. But now Christ comes to earth. He makes himself poor. He makes himself weak. A cry came from the manger, the cries of a baby in the manger of Bethlehem. And the devil shuddered. For God, who has all things, gave up everything to make himself one of us. If you will, God is not thinking of himself all the time. He's thinking of us. He's thinking of you and me. So, we must learn how to love like that, so that we first think of others. Husbands must first think of their wives, then themselves. Wives must first think of their husband, and then have time to think about themselves. And so forth with all of our relationships. And with God, that we think of him first. Not, oh, how does it make me feel, or what do I get out of it? Now, I was recently reading a story from a church in Russia, and this was a priest in a parish where they were having a discussion group. And he said, I want you to share with the group the first time that you actually prayed, the first time you spontaneously, of your own desire, prayed a prayer. And they all had different stories. One lady said, her name was Galina. So she told this story, that when she was a school child, it was 5th or 6th grade, in the Soviet times, a new boy appeared in class. His name was Ivan. So his nickname was Vanka. So he was different than the other children. They sometimes said he doesn't seem to be all there. He didn't play with the other children and engage in all the meetups and the conversations and the games and the tricks that they would do. There's something different about him. And of course, children can be cruel, and they made fun of him. But when they did, he didn't react. He would smile, perplexing them. He would just smile at them. But they sensed he was weak, and so they would pick on him even more. So one time they were walking along, and somebody tripped him, and he fell into a puddle. And so they got back to class afterward, and the teacher was like, why do you look all wet and dirty? He didn't tell on them. He said, oh, I fell into a puddle. So, in fact, one of the kids in class came up and said, good job, you didn't rat on us. But gradually, they came to realize that whatever he said tended to be the final word. And he would not, he would not tell people, oh, you must do this, you shouldn't do that. But if he was asked, he would say, no, that would not be good. That would not be good to do. Gradually, they came to have a kind of respect for him. They noticed that when people were around him, they tried not to say bad words, do bad things. So one day he had a medical problem in the classroom. He fell down. He was having trouble breathing. His lips turned blue. So the kids thought, oh no, he's going to die. And they said, no, Vanka, don't die. And Galina, remember, she's telling the story. This was in the Soviet times. She had learned about God's existence from her grandmother, but half of her believed, half of her didn't, thought it was all nonsense. But now she said, God, save Vanka. Don't take him from us. Another boy else had prayed, God, save him. Teacher came on the scene then at this point. I don't know where she'd been, but she came upon this, and she saw, she heard them praying, and you were not supposed to do that in the Soviet Union. But she didn't say anything. She turned away, and quietly, on the quiet, she made the sign of the cross. Well, Vanka did not die. He had to go to the hospital. The students got to know his family through this and helped out in his house a little bit as he was recovering, and so it seems like the prayer was heard. Now, before the end of their term in school, a year and a half before they left the school, he did die. So he had heart problems. His heart gave out. They all went to the funeral. They paid their respects. But they never lived their lives quite the same after that as they had lived their lives before. And somehow, through his influence, many of these students came to the church. They became believers. Of course, not right at the beginning, but eventually. And so, through his meekness, he prevailed over the darkness. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. So, he gave them a living example of what it means to love. We too often are thinking about, are people in the church acting loving? Do they behave in a loving manner? But really our question should be, regardless of everyone around me, Lord, do I love you? And do I love my neighbor? When I was a young novice monk, I read a little pamphlet thing that made a big impression on me. And it said, what are my rights? What are going to be my rights as a monk? Well, I have the right to be disrespected and to return this with love. I have the right to be denied all of the things I want to do, and in return to love. I have the right to be called names. I can't remember the whole list. Those are my rights. I have the right to be mistreated and to love in return. And then, if I've done all these things, I have the, I forget how it put it, right is not really the correct word, because eternal life is a gift of God. But if I can live my life in this way, I have the assurance from the Lord of everlasting life. So that should be our orientation. Let's not ask if people in the church are showing love. It's really not our business. But we know that we must show God who created us the same, a little drop of the same love with which He made us. And show our neighbors love, whether they deserve it or not is utterly beside the point. Let us first think of our neighbor, his salvation, his ease, his health, and then all these other things will be added unto us, including life eternal with our loving God. To Him be glory and praise unto the ages of ages. Amen.